So a little bit of introduction. I'm Daniella and the founder of Operation Open Eyes, which is an anti-human trafficking initiative. And my vision is to open eyes to the injustice of the sex slave trade and inspire action. And I do this through awareness, prevention, restoration, and networking, all of which we'll go into a bit further down, but this is the approach that I'm coming from. So it's always a good place to start with what is human trafficking. And there's a very, very long description if you look up the original definition. But in short, it's the exploitation of vulnerability. It's a person being bought or sold for an exchange of their life. And more often than not, there's a vulnerability there that is being exploited. Now, human trafficking can look very different, and is in many different shapes and forms. From sexual exploitation to forced labor, debt bondage, domestic servitude, organ donors, forced marriages, child soldiers, criminal exploitation. There's so many. So as we're looking at this problem, know that it's common and normal to go, oh my goodness, this is such a big problem. Where do we even begin to tackle it? And I'm here to tell you, while it's a big problem, nothing is bigger than our God. And you know, a lot of the problems that we face in this world, the people he chooses to use to stop it is us. And you know, I wanted to give honor actually to these grounds, that these grounds were owned by the Thornton family, who were the cousins of William Wilberforce. So these grounds would have actually been used back in the original abolition of slavery. And I just think that's such an incredible background and story to be able to be standing here today to talk about this subject again and say, you know what, no matter what, we're all still in this fight for human rights, for human dignity, and for freedom. So while each of these things are an issue, each one can look different where you are. For instance, forced labor may be higher, say, in the fens where we've got a lot of farming and there can be a lot of exploitation there. And it'll be more prevalent there than it'll be in, say, London, where there's less farming. But so it's always good when you're thinking of human trafficking is to go, well, what of these areas impacts me? What is it that affects my life, and where can I make the difference? And that's why, for me, is why I've chosen sexual exploitation, because it's the one thing that happens all over the world, no matter where you are. It looks slightly different, but it's happening there. And so it's the one thing that I believe everybody can make a difference with. So, for instance, in Thailand, sexual exploitation will have a lot to do with poverty, and it has a lot to do with culture. In England, sexual exploitation, we often say, well, you know, prostitutes have a choice. You know, but when you think about the West, when the average age of entry into prostitution is 13 or 14 years old, you have to question if that's really a choice. So that's the fight that I'm in. And you know, Jeremiah 7:31, it talks about some of the evil things that were happening at the time. And God says, I have never commanded such a horrible deed. It never even crossed my mind to command such a thing. And so while it's easy to look around and go, God, where are you in this? He's looking down going, where did that come from? That didn't come from me. You know, and these things that are happening can be so dark that not even God had thought of it. But you know what? Greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And there really is no darkness strong enough to hold the power of God. And that is the same power that's in us. I don't know if you know this, but you know the song Amazing Grace? You know, we've all heard it, we've all sung it. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. You know, that song was written by a slave owner. And so as we're talking about this, it's easy to keep in the mindset the victims of human trafficking, the slaves. But you know what? God is even bigger than the traffickers. He's even bigger than the owners of the slave. And it's their hearts he's after too. So statistics are always a bit, Well, how do you know? So I call them guesstimates. And so today, there is the guesstimate of 27 million slaves across the world today. And it's an underground movement, so it's hard to stable. Some say it's a lot more, some say it's a couple of million less, but no one has said it's less than in the millions. And, I'm looking at that and I'm like, 27 million, well, I'm just one person. What can I do with 27 million? And then I thought, well, hang on a minute, how many Christians are there in the world today? And, the guesstimate back in 2011, I think it was, is that there are 2 billion Christians across the world today. So as I'm looking at, suddenly that problem has gotten a lot smaller. I don't know if any of you is good with maths that can work out how many Christians that is to a survivor, but there were too many zeros for me to put on my calculator, so, But it's a few Christians to one survivor or to one trafficker, right? So I think this is a problem that we can tackle. And but why? Why do I think that this is a church's responsibility? You could say, well, the government can deal with it. Well, it's up to the country and the laws that they make. And you can kind of say, well, it's everyone's responsibility, but not mine. But you know what? Ultimately, the traffickers are doing our job. The traffickers are the ones that are looking for the hurting and the vulnerable. They're the ones that are reaching the lonely and the hurting, and they're exploiting it. Because you know what? Satan's not a creator, he's a copier. So he goes, oh, God wants you to do that? We'll do that. And they're getting there first, because they're not afraid to go up to someone and say, hey, are you okay? Can I wait with you? Do you need me to wait with someone? And we're sitting there going, oh, what will they think of me? Will they think I'm stupid? They're probably fine. And while we're wondering whether we should go over and approach them, someone else is already doing it. And I know in one state in America, they said 1 in 3 children who run away from home are trafficked. Because there's someone pulling up saying, hey, do you need somewhere to stay? I've got somewhere for you. You need a job? I've got a job for you. So, right there you've got something we can all do, right? Is we can all get there first. Not be afraid to go up to people and say, hey, you okay? Can I wait with you while someone comes for you? Do you need a phone? You can use mine. Do you need somewhere to stay? I have people you can call. And I'm starting Operation Open Eyes, and I'm praying about this issue. And I got the scripture, you'll know it, the Matthew scripture, pray for the workers, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And it says, Jesus is looking around at all these people and he's feeling their hopelessness. And you know what? I believe that's the same thing he's feeling today. And I had this vision of Jesus, and he's standing at the gate, and there's these 27 million people behind him, and he's holding the gate closed. And every now and then he'll step aside and he'll release one of them. And he'll see how we get on, like, hey guys, you ready for these people? You ready? And every now and then a survivor will end up being re-trafficked because the restoration piece is not in place to hold her. And every time a survivor gets re-trafficked, her hope is extinguished. She tried to escape, or he tried to escape, and it didn't work. So what's the point in trying again? So it sounds a bit weird, but I kind of saw this as it's God's grace that we're not seeing them released yet because we're not ready. And he's saying, okay, church, come on, this is your time, let's get ready. Because I want to stand back from this gate, and when I release them, are you guys ready? Will you take them? And so that's what I see this period of, and again, you look at statistics and it varies, but most organizations said that between 50 to 80% of survivors that are rescued end up being re-trafficked. And for me, that's too high percentage. We need to change that percentage. We need to have places that these safe houses and these organizations who are rescuing them can send the survivors. And we can be that place. Because what is the church good at? What do we know better than anybody? It's restoration, right? So this is what Jesus came to do. Will you guys do me a favor and read that for me? So the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me. So it kind of sounds to me that this is a little bit on Jesus' heart, maybe. Yeah? That we're not wandering too far off the track of what he was sent here to do. To bring good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open the prisons to those who are bound, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. But then, we can go, okay, but that's what Jesus came to do, right? And, he's here with us, but he's not here in person. So, okay, so let's take it a bit further and go, okay, well, what is it that God has called us to do? It's a little bit small, but can you guys read that? About it, Sam, will you lead it? Kind of sounds to me like he's asking us to do that too, huh? But I love this. This is one of my favorite scriptures because, when you're working with people who are broken, when you're working with people who are hurting, hurt people. And so working with them is really, really hard work. Loving them is not easy. And this scripture doesn't just tell you to do it. He goes on and says, hey, and you know what, if you do it, I'm going to give you guys some really cool stuff too. Because as you're reaching out and as you're fasting and as you're sharing your food and you're giving clothes to the naked, then your light will break forth. Then your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you. And the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Not only that, but when you call, then the Lord will answer. And as you call out to him, he will say, here am I. So with that promise, why would we not do it? I want healing. I want God to be my rear guard. I want to know that if I cry to him, he's going to help me. Right? Are these not all amazing things to want? So as we go into this, know that there are promises for us too. There's promises of healing. There's promises for help. There's promises that he's going to shine brighter than the darkness we're facing. Or, to put it short and sweet, he has told you, oh man, what is good. One of the battles with human trafficking is the balance between justice and mercy. That is something that I've battled with for a long time. Because if you're doing justice, surely you can't have mercy. Or if you're being merciful, then how is justice being done? But God is the God of justice. And he said, justice is mine. And for that, I can hand that completely to him. And one of my good friends said to me recently, he said, Della, it's only when you really face the bad stuff can you offer mercy. Only when you look at a situation and say, this is so bad, you need mercy. Then mercy is true. And that's how this situation is. It is so bad. And you know what? The survivors that come out of it will be feeling so guilty over the things that they've done, that they've been forced to do, some that they would have volunteered to do, that's led them to where they are. And the only way out is for them is for mercy. or even for traffickers who have come from a place of brokenness and have found themselves, whether through gangs or whether through addictions or whether through whatever, have found themselves in a place of power to be able to do these things to somebody else. And when they come to know Jesus, well, justice says, get out. Who are you? But mercy says, look at all that. Isn't that why I died on the cross, is so that you could be free? There's a film called Nefarious Merchants of Souls. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's very good. It's a documentary that talks about prostitution worldwide and the difference between prostitution and human trafficking. And in it is a trafficker. And he says, I was bound by one thing and she was bound by another. But Jesus came to set the captives free. So, it's amazing, but justice and mercy do walk hand in hand, and our God is a God of both. So where does the church fit? So awareness is huge. Raise awareness of human trafficking, of what it is and what it looks like, and what people can do about it. As I've traveled the world raising awareness of human trafficking, there are two stories that stood out to me, but I've had many people say to me, I wish I had known sooner. So I had one girl say, and I'm going to cover the signs of human trafficking later, but she said, if I'd have known, she said, I went to a Christmas party or a party as a teenager. And she said there was another girl there, and she just kept saying to me, they've taken my passport, they've taken my passport. She said, I didn't know, I was 15. I didn't know what she was saying. She said, had I known then what I know now, I could have done something. And she carries that weight with her. Or there's a pastor who attended a training I was doing on it. And he said, okay, tell me more. He said, because I bought a video camera online, and I went to pick it up. And the guy said to me, would you like a girl with that? I have one of every color. What girl would you like? He said, I was a pastor. I said, no, thank you very much. He said, but that would have been her choice, right? I said, no, more than likely those girls would have been trafficked. Had he known, he could have called someone and those girls could be free today. So raising awareness makes a difference, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you can call and you can make a difference in a survivor's life. Networking is going to take a community. That's why I believe in the power of the church, because we are all different people from different walks of life with different skills and different things to offer, and it's going to take all of us and all of them to restore. So let's work together. But highlighted, I have prevention and restoration. And these are key, because if 50 to 80% of survivors are being re-trafficked, and these are people that have already been rescued, then that is our biggest need. We had some of the top organizations for the anti-trafficking movement came together, and they said our biggest need is prevention. There's currently nobody or very few people on the front lines to do prevention. So if that is the biggest need, let's get in there and let's say, hey, we'll do that. We'll help you with that. But it's not attractive, because the prevention and the restoration piece is where you get your hands dirty. It's not the piece that gets highlighted in the newspaper. It's not the piece that gives you the pat on the back and says, well done. And it's not the piece you always see the results for. But it is the piece where the biggest impact is made. And as you work with the hurting and the broken in your churches and your communities, you will be building your resources to be able to impact the life of a survivor. And why is that? Because like a tree, very often the roots are also the fruit that you see. Does that make sense? So the roots of human trafficking are often what you see. So what does that mean? So if we're talking about sexual exploitation, very often the roots of why that exists is because of addictions to pornography. It will be maybe even sex addiction, it'll be child abuse, it'll be greed, it'll be broken families, it'll be loneliness, and it'll be power and control. But wait, most of those things are already in our churches, right? Or can't we say that out loud? Yeah? Most of us probably already know someone that's addicted to pornography. We probably already know someone who's struggling with homosexuality. We probably already know someone who's been abused as a child or is being abused as a child. We probably all know a few greedy people. We probably know people coming from broken families. We probably know people who are really, really lonely. And we probably all know people who just crave power and they crave control. So by dealing with these roots and by being a place where people can come and say, hey, I'm struggling with that, we also create a place where when someone comes out of that, you say, you know what? We're ready. Because we're already dealing with those roots and we already have people who are freed from that because we've walked them from brokenness into healing because Jesus has been the restorer of their hearts and their minds and their beings, that they no longer walk those routes. And because we have a track record of that, we know we can help you. And for everything that we as a church stand against, we must be the answer for. It's not okay for us to stand on the streets with our, picket signs saying, that's wrong, you can't do that, What is the ultimate reason for sin? Why does sin exist? It's because of lack of knowing about Jesus. And I think most of their sins are not because they're doing wrong. It's because they don't know Jesus. And their pain and the brokenness that causes them to act out like that must be so deep. I look at the issues in my life, not that I have any, and I think, why can't I deal with that? Why can't I get over that? And I think, I didn't come from anything like what other people must have come through. I was raised in a Christian home. I had, there was a little bit of brokenness there, but on the whole, it was fine. And yet I have all these issues. And I think, but what about someone who didn't have that security, who didn't have that love, who doesn't know what it means to have a father in their life, who only knows the people they trusted abused them? How long is it going to take them to work through their issues? So can we not be a place that genuinely says, I love you? Yeah, come and swear all the time, that's fine, because you know what, I love you. Come and wear your short skirt and your low top because you don't know how to receive love any other way, but I'm going to show you how to be loved. I'm going to show you, well, I'm not, but I'll show you how a real man loves a woman. I will show you how to be your friend, not based on how you look or on how you act or how you treat me. I'm going to show you how to be faithful, and you can just show up whenever you want to because you've never had someone steady and stable before. The gospel is restoration. Isn't that the whole point of the gospel? Is for us to be restored to Jesus. For Jesus to return, for him to die on the cross to make all things new, for him to return to create a new heaven and a new earth. Is that not the power of the gospel, is restoration and freedom? Is that not the authority and the power that we, as Jesus followers, are walking in today? So who else can show these survivors that power and that love and that freedom and what restoration really means better than us? Unconditional love, unconditional freedom, unconditional grace. I get excited. I think we can do it. Will you guys join me? I think we can do it. And I hate to tell you this, guys, but like most things, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Matthew 24, it says, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Guys, that's not some, that's most. And I believe we're just beginning to walk into that. We're beginning to understand what that really means. As we're seeing the church compromise, as we're seeing darkness come more and more onto our doorstep, we as a church are having to figure out, God, where are you in this? And you know what's awesome? Is God doesn't leave us out there. God has said to us, hey guys, you remember that Bible that you read every now and then? Kind of tells you in it. I've warned you that this is going to happen, and I've given you the tools to stand strong through it. That's what I love about God, is he lets us know ahead of time, and then he's there with us through it, and we also know the end goal, so we're kind of cool, we know where he's going. Yeah? And so this is it, guys. It's going to get darker. But you know what the awesome thing about darkness is? Light shines there. Light is shown bigger and brighter and stronger in the darkness. And we have God, and we have Jesus, and we're not going to have to stand there on our own. But you know, as things get worse, there's already an increase in natural disasters. We're already getting an increase of terrorist threats and, everything. We're living in a generation where we're telling them that you can do whatever you want. No one can tell you what's right or what's wrong. So as these things get darker and these things happen more and more, what kind of people are we going to see in our church if we're doing our job and reaching out? Some pretty messed up people, right? Because they're going to discover that while they're doing anything they want, those things aren't bringing them happiness, they're not fulfilling them. And what they've done affects someone else, and then you have someone who's traumatized because someone else did this to them. And the more and more darker it gets, the more and more broken people we're going to get. But what's awesome about that is we know a God who does miracles. We know a God who shines light in darkness. We know a God who restores life and has been restoring us from the very beginning of time. And we can be that light in the darkness. We can be that place that when people look around and say, where is hope? Where is God? Where is the stuff? Where is the good in this? The church can turn around and say, right here, we have this place for you. So in New Orleans, when the hurricane hit, human law broke down. The police couldn't do their job. Everything just went on lockdown. And, whatever you think about law enforcement, there's an incredible amount of good, because I'm not going to murder someone for a few reasons, but one of which is because I don't want to end up in prison, right? More reasons than that, but that's a pretty big one. But when that's no longer an option, whatever is not dealt with in our own hearts comes to light. So there was an increase in, they were shooting helicopters down. There was an increase in pornography, there were an increase in rapes, there were an increase in burglaries, there was an increase in all these things that had had a lid on it because there was law enforcement in place. And that's our own sin. That's how messed up we really are as people. But God says, you know what? I've come to restore all things and make all things new. He's a restorer of our minds. He's a restorer of our hearts. And I'm not telling you guys this to scare you or to freak you out, but I'm telling you guys this so we can be prepared and we can become and be a place where God shines brighter. And we can be prepared and be a place where we don't freak out and go, oh my goodness, what's happening? Because we already know. And we go, you know what, because of this darkness in you, there's even more need for you to know Jesus. There's more reason for you to know God. And we can't be afraid of it. So I've got a few minutes left, but I just want to give you guys some practical hands-on experience. It's all good about talking in theory. Human trafficking. What are the signs of human trafficking? If you want to be like my pastor friend who wasn't sure when they came across it, here are some signs for you to know. Very often a survivor or a victim of human trafficking will be fearful, particularly of the law. If you want to talk about the police, they'll freak out, say no thank you. And they're probably unaware of where they are, because they will have been moved around so much, they'll have no clue where they are. Where they are is irrelevant. Their physical appearance, they'll probably be in the same clothes very often. There may be signs of abuse, and they'll probably be malnourished. In isolation, in poor living conditions, sometimes they'll be branded with tattoos. They can be nervous, depressed, paranoid. Their stories will be inconsistent. You can ask them where they are, what they've been doing, and their stories won't line up because they'll have been told what to say. They'll have few or no personal effects, restricted freedom of movement and unusual travel times, reluctant to seek help, no passport ID, and not in control of their own money. They'll often be driven to and from premises, and there are often security cameras at those premises. Does that give you guys some helpful things to kind of watch out for? And this can be anywhere. You know, in Huntingdon, where I live, there were some places were shut down there for human trafficking. There've been places in Cambridge, there've been places in Ely. Like, these are local people and businesses that are trafficking people. And this is my favorite line: who do you call? If you don't all say Ghostbusters, I'm going to be very disappointed. Thank you, Sam. Obvious answer, 999. And also Crime Stoppers will give you more information about it too. Yeah. Take action. If you see someone who you think might be trafficked, call the police or call Crime Stoppers. Don't get involved yourself. Because if traffickers think they've been suspected, they're going to be off. And these can be people at home. So it could be your neighbor, unfortunately. If you see people coming and going from your house, I know one survivor managed to get a note to a neighbor that just said, "Help me." They can be car washes, local car washes now. They're not all done up fancy. They're often just some people that will wash your car. So just start conversation with those people as you let them do your car. Farming really can be anyone, anywhere. It's cool. Obvious thing, raise awareness. Raise finances for your local organizations and pray. But be aware of the signs of trafficking and recognize the vulnerable. And that can be a girl outside of a shop, it can be at a mall or a shopping place. I've got Get Protected down the bottom. Guys, the numbers have lowered. They say now 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused by the time they're 18. And it used to be 1 in 3, 1 in 4. The average age of entry into prostitution is 13 to 14 years old, and 90 to 95% of prostitutes have been sexually abused before they entered the sex slave trade. It's time for us to start looking around and raising awareness of what's happening in our own homes. If you suspect someone is being abused, please, please speak up and be a voice for that victim. Shop fair trade. Christmas is coming up, guys. Look for the fair trade stickers and know that those workers will be treated well and will be getting paid well. It's a bit more expensive, but it's worth it. Be root focused. I feel like I missed one. Yeah, no, I didn't. Be root focused. What are the issues of human trafficking? How can we prevent? Let's make sure that the fruit that is rising is good fruit. Discover your local areas at risk. It could be the farming, it could be prostitution. Those are probably the 2 main ones in England. But keep an eye out. And get protected. Child protection policies in your churches, guys. If you haven't got them, please get them. And network. Find out what other people are doing and get involved. Where can you do all this stuff? In your own family. Let's start there, guys. Let's make sure that our teenagers are protected online. Keep your computers in open spaces where they can see. Talk to them not only about stranger danger, but just, people to be careful of. Talk to them about how great guys are and it's good to have boyfriends. However, we all have the Holy Spirit, so we all know when someone's a bit not right. Yeah? So warn them. In your church, child protection policies. Let's, as a church, be a place of prevention. Let's be a place of restoration. Let's be a people of prevention and restoration. In schools, raising awareness in schools, in your local community streets, and in your broken families around you. Let's start getting out there, guys, and start reaching people and start being light in that darkness. Let's start getting connected. Psalm 124, verse 7 says, "Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are sons born in one's youth." Guys, our teenagers are out there. They know what's out there. They know the darkness that their friends are going through better than we do. A part of Operation Open Eyes and Generation to Generation, part of our vision is that parents would raise soldiers. They'd disciple their own kids and strengthen their own kids to bring them to the body of Christ, who forms them into an army to win the lost. Let's, as families, start raising our own kids so that we can start reaching the lost and bringing the lost in the church, and we can be a place for them. If you want to go deeper, contact me. Just kidding. Kind of. So I can offer nefarious showings. It's a great way to introduce this topic to churches or individuals around you. As I talked a little bit about earlier, it talks about prostitution, human trafficking, what that looks like globally. And what I love about it is it ends with the hope of Jesus. I also do something called Stewards of Children, which is a child protection evening. It's 2.5 hours. And it talks about child protection. It talks about preventing them from childhood sexual abuse, and helps you come up with a child protection policy if you don't have one, but also gives a voice to the victims. And then Hands That Heal. If you want to go deeper, if you want to know if there's more that you can do to be more hands-on with anti-human trafficking, this is a great resource. It's a course that covers what human trafficking is, from awareness to prevention to restoration to rescue and restoration, and it's something that I can deliver for churches and organizations or a group of individuals who are interested. I will say one thing, I haven't touched on rescue, and the reason for that is with 50 to 80% who are being rescued going back in, I think we have enough people rescuing. And I think as we get the restoration piece sorted, there'll then be a bigger need to rescue. Rescue is glamorous. It gets you in the newspapers. You think you're on the front end, but if the rescue isn't long-term, then what's the point? So that's why I haven't covered that. And then find out the needs of your local anti-trafficking organization. That can be finances, it can be administration, it can be there's a department that you're really good at that you could help out, from healthcare to, I'll be surprised if all of you don't have a gift that an organization could use, including Operation Open Eyes, should any of you want to know more.